Maldives. The Maldives is like that friend who built their house way too close to the ocean, and now the tide keeps sneaking in. Since the whole country is basically a chain of flat islands barely peaking above sea level, rising oceans are slowly turning paradise into a swimming pool. Add in stronger storms and salty water messing up the land, and you've got a recipe for islands shrinking bit by bit. Scientists say by the end of this century, large parts could be gone, and people might have to pack their bags and move, basically turning the Maldives from a tropical getaway into a story we tell about the country that the sea ate. Tuvalu. Tuvalu is like a sandcastle built right on the shore. Looks nice for now, but the waves keep creeping closer every year. The islands are so low that even a small rise in sea level makes a big difference, and salty water is already spoiling the soil and drinking water. Add in storms that hit harder than before, and the land is slowly sinking out of daily life. By the end of this century, Tuvalu might be more of a memory than a map, with its people becoming one of the world's first climate nomads. Kiribati. Kiribati is basically trying to live life on a surfboard, thin, flat, and surrounded by endless ocean that's slowly winning the battle. Rising seas are nibbling at its shores, while salty water keeps sneaking into wells and farms, making everyday survival tougher. Some villages have already had to move inland, though there isn't much inland to go to. If things keep going this way, by the late 21st century, Kiribati could be swallowed bit by bit, leaving its people scattered across other countries while their homeland slips under the waves. Marshall Islands. The Marshall Islands are like tiny dots in the Pacific playing a never-ending game of dodge with the ocean, but the water keeps cheating and rising higher. Most of the land sits just a couple of meters above sea level, so flooding, erosion, and stronger cyclones are already making daily life a struggle. Salt water is creeping into crops and fresh water, turning survival into a balancing act. If trends continue, by the end of the century, much of the nation could vanish under the sea, remembered more through history books than passports. Bangladesh. Bangladesh is like living in a giant river delta that the ocean keeps trying to borrow. With millions of people packed into low-lying areas, rising seas and cyclones regularly push water on a land that's supposed to be dry. Saltwater sneaks into farms and drinking supplies, while floods wash away villages like they're made of paper. By the later part of the century, big chunks of southern Bangladesh could sink underwater, forcing massive migration and leaving behind a country that feels a lot smaller than the one on today's map. Seychelles. Seychelles is like a postcard paradise that the ocean keeps eyeing like a snack. These islands sit low and fragile, so rising seas and stronger storms are slowly chipping away at their beaches and coral reefs. As the land shrinks and salty water spoils what's left, living there gets trickier every year. Fast forward a few decades, and parts of Seychelles could slip beneath the waves, turning from a luxury holiday spot into a story of islands that the ocean refused to share. Taiwan. Taiwan is like a bustling neighborhood sitting next to a giant landlord who keeps saying, "That's actually mine." While it thrives as a tech powerhouse with its own government and identity, China has never stopped eyeing it as territory to fold back in. Political pressure, military threats, and international tug-of-war keep Taiwan in a constant state of what if. If things escalate in the coming decades, Taiwan might not vanish underwater, but instead disappear on paper, absorbed into a bigger map where its independence becomes more of a memory than a reality. Palestine. Palestine is like a small garden trapped between two towering estates, where every inch of soil is fought over. Over decades, settlements, political moves, and border changes have slowly shrunk the land its people can actually live on. With ongoing pressure and annexation attempts, the spaces that feel like home keep getting smaller, and the population faces constant displacement. If current trends continue, Palestine might survive more in memory and history than on maps, as its territory gets absorbed bit by bit. Ukraine. Ukraine is like a big, fertile backyard that suddenly found itself in the middle of a messy property fight. Parts of it have already been grabbed, and constant conflict keeps shaking up who controls what. Cities and villages are getting destroyed, people are fleeing, and borders keep shifting like chalk on a blackboard. If the war drags on or escalates, Ukraine could end up smaller and fractured, remembered more for what it used to be than for the land that's left under its flag. Belarus. Belarus is like that quiet neighbor who keeps getting nudged by a pushy friend next door. Politically, it's been leaning heavily on Russia, with leaders cozying up and giving away chunks of independence without anyone firing a shot. Over time, borders and policies could blur so much that Belarus might not vanish physically, but it could disappear as a truly independent country, remembered mostly as a region folded into its bigger neighbor's map. Nauru. Nauru is like a tiny rock in the Pacific trying to stay alive while running out of space and resources. The phosphate that once made it rich is mostly gone, land is scarred, and there's barely enough fresh water or farmland to support its people. With jobs scarce and the population slowly shrinking, life there is getting harder every year. If trends continue, Nauru could end up nearly empty, turning from a full-fledged nation into a tiny, almost forgotten dot on the map. Japan. Japan is like a once-packed theme park that's slowly emptying out ride by ride. Birth rates have dropped for decades. People are living longer, and young folks are having fewer kids, leaving towns and villages ghostly quiet. Cities are shrinking, schools are closing, and entire neighborhoods are turning into eerie reminders of a bustling past. If this keeps going, Japan won't disappear physically, but large parts could feel abandoned, with the country shrinking in population until it's barely the same energetic place it used to be.